For decades, Area 51 has been the most infamous and heavily guarded military base in the world. Officially, it's nothing more than a classified testing site for advanced aircraft. But for conspiracy theorists, whistleblowers, and those who have dared to dig deeper, the truth is far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. It starts with a single breach. A rogue hacker stumbles upon an encrypted transmission, buried within the deep web, originating from the heart of Area 51. The transmission isn't just military chatter, it's a warning. A desperate plea laced with alien symbols, unknown coordinates, and cryptic messages that suggest something far beyond our understanding is hidden beneath the Nevada desert. At the same time, a former scientist from the base goes missing. Before disappearing, he leaves behind a digital journal, one that describes impossible technology, genetic experiments with non-human DNA, and encounters with an intelligence beyond anything on Earth. He speaks of the underground levels of Area 51, a facility that stretches deep beneath the surface, where extraterrestrial research has been taking place for decades. But the biggest revelation is yet to come. What if Area 51 isn't just about UFOs and secret weapons? What if the real secret is something that should have never been discovered? As scientists push the limits of physics, an experiment involving zero-point energy goes horribly wrong. They weren't just testing new technology, they were tearing through the fabric of reality itself. Something escaped. Something impossible. Now, with the military scrambling to cover up the biggest secret in human history, it's too late to stop what has begun. As the hacker decrypts the final piece of the transmission, the world is about to learn the uncontainable truth about Area 51, and why we were never meant to know. A rogue hacker known only as Spectre had spent years infiltrating classified government networks, always searching for something bigger than just hidden documents or black-budget projects. One night, deep within the labyrinth of encrypted military channels, Spectre stumbled upon an anomaly, an untraceable transmission originating from the heart of Area 51. Unlike standard military communications, this transmission was layered with advanced encryption, but buried within were fragmented alien symbols, strange numerical coordinates, and ominous warnings. At first, Spectre assumed it was just another classified experiment, perhaps a military hoax or a decoy designed to mislead infiltrators like himself. But as he dug deeper, something felt wrong. The encryption was unlike anything he had ever encountered, using an algorithm that didn't match any known human cryptographic methods. It wasn't just classified, it was otherworldly. The more he worked to break through, the more his screen flooded with garbled symbols and distorted messages, almost as if something was trying to keep him out. Then, after hours of relentless effort, he broke through the first firewall. The transmission became clearer, revealing a chilling message. The experiment has failed. The anomaly cannot be contained. The threshold has been breached. This is not a drill. Attached to the message was a set of coordinates deep in the Nevada desert, miles beyond what was publicly recognized as the borders of Area 51. Even more unsettling were the flashes of video fragments embedded within the transmission brief, distorted images of an underground facility, figures in hazmat suits running, alarms blaring, and something moving in the shadows, too fast for the camera to fully capture. Spectre's heart pounded. He knew the risks of hacking military networks, but this was different. This wasn't just a cover-up of classified aircraft or concealment of extraterrestrial artifacts, this was a warning. Something inside Area 51 had gone terribly wrong. As he tried to dig further, the transmission suddenly cut off. His screen flickered, lines of code scrambled and reassembled, and then a final message appeared before his system was completely wiped. You were not meant to see this. They are coming. Then, without warning, His power shut down. His laptop screen went black. His emergency servers, disconnected from the grid, refused to boot. Even his phone, a separate device, isolated from his network, displayed nothing but static. It was as if someone, or something, had just erased his entire digital footprint in an instant. For the first time in his hacking career, Spectre felt true fear. The government had countermeasures for intruders, but not like this. This wasn't just a response team tracking his IP, this was something more advanced, something unnatural. As he sat in the darkness of his apartment, he realized one horrifying truth: whatever was inside Area 51 wasn't meant for the outside world. And now, they knew he had seen it. Dr. Elias Carter had spent over 2 decades working in the deepest levels of Area 51, hidden from the public eye and bound by secrecy. Officially, he was a lead physicist specializing in aerospace propulsion, but the reality was far more unsettling. His true work involved reverse engineering technology that was not of this world, devices retrieved from crash sites, unexplainable artifacts, and biological samples that defied classification. For years, he rationalized his work as part of human progress, telling himself that if the government didn't study these things, someone else would. But as time passed, he began to realize something disturbing: they weren't just studying alien technology, they were using it. It started with small breakthroughs: metals that could shift molecular structure, energy sources that defied conventional physics, and biological matter that regenerated itself indefinitely. Each discovery led to something even more unsettling, pushing the boundaries of human science beyond recognition. But Dr. Carter's breaking point came when he was assigned to Project Prometheus, a top-secret initiative within Area 51 that aimed not only to understand non-human intelligence but to merge it with human biology. The first test subjects were military volunteers. Or at least, that's what they were called. In reality, many had been prisoners, people who had officially disappeared from the system. These individuals were subjected to genetic modification, neural reprogramming, and direct contact with something being held in the lower levels of the base. Dr. Carter only caught glimpses of it, flashes on security footage, descriptions buried in classified reports, but it was enough to make his blood run cold. It was not human, but it was alive. And it was influencing them. Over time, the test subjects changed. Some became faster, stronger, more resilient than any human should be. Others, however, did not survive. Those who did began to exhibit strange neurological activity, displaying bursts of knowledge in languages they had never learned and responding to unseen signals as if they were receiving messages from something beyond human comprehension. The scientists were told to continue. The project was a success, they were assured the next stage of human evolution. But Dr. Carter could see the truth: they weren't evolving. They were becoming something else. Then, one night, something escaped. Dr. Carter was in his lab when the alarms blared, red lights flashing, sirens screaming through the underground corridors. Security forces mobilized instantly, but whatever had broken containment was faster than them. The facility went into lockdown, and distorted radio transmissions filled the emergency channels. He could hear the panic in the guards' voices, murmurs of something walking through walls, something speaking in a voice that wasn't human. In the chaos, Dr. Carter did the only thing he could: he ran. He bypassed the security gates, wiped his own records, and disappeared into the night. But he knew that wouldn't be enough. He had worked too long, seen too much. They wouldn't let him escape. And worse still, he feared that whatever they had created inside Area 51, was no longer contained. Miles beneath the scorching Nevada desert, within the most classified levels of Area 51, there existed a chamber that no one spoke of, not in official reports, not in whispered conversations among scientists, not even in the darkest corners of classified files. It was known only as the vault, and its very existence was a secret even within the base. Dr. Elias Carter had once glimpsed the entrance by accident, during his first year working on extraterrestrial propulsion systems. At the time, he assumed it was merely another restricted area, a containment wing for unstable technology. But over the years, through passing conversations and fragments of classified data, he began piecing together the horrifying truth: the vault was not a research facility. It was a prison. Something had been locked away deep underground, something not of this world. Unlike the recovered alien crafts, unlike the bioengineering experiments, unlike the failed human modifications, this was alive. And it had been there for far longer than any of them. The whispers among security personnel spoke of the original discovery in the late 1940s, long before the infamous Roswell incident. Some claimed it was found inside an ancient cave system, not from a crashed craft, but something that had been buried there for centuries. Others insisted it wasn't found at all, but had arrived not from space, but from somewhere else, a dimension that humans were never meant to access. What terrified Dr. Carter most wasn't the speculation, but the small slivers of documentation he had seen, distorted images of a shifting, amorphous entity, pages filled with unreadable symbols that looked eerily similar to the ones Spectre had uncovered in his hack. And then there were the audio files, garbled, static-filled recordings of something speaking in a voice that sounded almost human, but not quite. The vault was guarded with layers of defense beyond standard military protocols: electromagnetic fields, psi-dampening chambers, and what appeared to be esoteric symbols engraved into the very walls. But despite every measure, something about the entity seemed to leak out. Personnel stationed near the vault were often transferred out within months, reporting visions, nightmares, and an overwhelming sensation of being watched. Some had even gone mad, claiming they could hear whispers in their own thoughts, speaking in a language that they had never learned but somehow understood. Then, one day, the security around the vault increased dramatically. No explanation was given. Every worker in the facility was required to undergo psychological evaluations, and several were removed without a trace. Some whispered that it had woken up, that for the first time in decades, the vault was no longer just a prison, but a beacon. Dr. Carter never wanted to know what was inside. But as the days passed and strange signals began to emanate from beneath the desert, he knew one terrifying truth: whatever was in the vault had started reaching out. The moment the first unexplained transmission was detected, it sent a wave of panic through the highest levels of Area 51. Unlike the routine anomalies the facility often picked up from deep space, this signal was different. It wasn't coming from outside the planet. It was coming from inside the base itself. Dr. Elias Carter was one of the first to analyze the data. The waveform patterns were erratic, unlike anything they had encountered before. At first, the researchers assumed it was radio interference, possibly a technical glitch from one of their classified projects. But as they isolated the frequencies, a chilling realization set in: the signal was structured. It wasn't just random noise. It was a message. As they ran the data through decryption algorithms, something even more disturbing happened. Their systems started failing. Screens flickered, files became corrupted, and several researchers reported sudden blackouts, as if their minds had simply shut off for a brief moment before jolting back to reality. A few even claimed they had heard whispers during those blackouts, voices speaking in a language they couldn't recognize but instinctively understood. The message, once partially reconstructed, was short but unnerving. You opened the door. Dr. Carter's hands trembled as he stared at the decoded text on his screen. No one had sent this message. It wasn't a test transmission. It wasn't coming from any of their classified satellites or deep space arrays. It was originating from deep within the restricted levels of Area 51. Security was immediately heightened. The top brass ordered a full lockdown of the lower sectors, sealing off the vault and deploying elite units to investigate. Carter wasn't sure what terrified him more, the fact that something was broadcasting from inside the base, or the fact that whoever had received the message already knew what it meant. Over the next 48 hours, more transmissions followed, each one more incomprehensible than the last. Some were just guttural sounds, others contained symbols that didn't match any known language. But then came the audio. It was a voice. Distorted. Deep. Layered. As if multiple voices were speaking as one. "We are awake." Something was communicating. But was it from inside the vault, or had something from outside finally responded? A secret meeting was called among the facility's highest-ranking officials. Dr. Carter wasn't supposed to be there, but his clearance level and direct involvement made it unavoidable. What he heard in that room chilled him to his core. The transmissions weren't just leaking out, they were being received elsewhere. Somewhere beyond the facility, possibly beyond Earth itself, something was listening. And now, it was answering back. The moment the transmissions reached beyond Area 51, everything changed. It was no longer a contained anomaly, no longer a mystery locked beneath the Nevada desert. Something or someone was listening. Dr. Elias Carter knew that secrecy was the foundation of the base's existence, but this was different. The transmission wasn't just an internal breach, it was an invitation. The question was, to whom? In the hours following the first confirmed external response, a series of unexplained phenomena began occurring across the base. Security footage became distorted, showing figures that weren't there. Sensors in the lower levels started detecting movements in sealed chambers. And then, the personnel began to disappear. At first, it was dismissed as procedural errors, misplaced documentation, reassigned staff. But when a team of elite security officers vanished without a trace while investigating the restricted sublevels, panic set in. The official reports claimed no records of their existence, as if the men had never been stationed at the base at all. Carter, however, remembered them. He had spoken to one of them just the day before, a soldier named Lieutenant Graves, who had confided in him that something was watching them in the lower sectors. Now, Graves had been erased, not just from the facility, but seemingly from history itself. The remaining staff were given strict orders: speak of this to no one. Do not acknowledge the transmissions. Do not attempt to access restricted data. Do not ask questions. But Carter knew they were already too late. A final transmission came through at exactly 3:33 a.m. this time, not just through the base's classified communication channels, but across multiple networks, including civilian radio frequencies. It was no longer confined to Area 51. The message was short, but devastating. They are coming. That was the moment the power across the entire facility went out. The emergency generators failed. The underground security locks released on their own. The vault, sealed for decades, guarded with every known and unknown defense mechanism, began to open. The surviving personnel scrambled to contain the breach, but there was no enemy to fight, no intruder to apprehend. The air itself felt heavier, charged with something they couldn't comprehend. The walls hummed with a frequency that sent chills through bone. And then, one by one, the lights flickered back on. But something had changed. The once sterile hallways now felt alien, as if reality itself had shifted. Voices echoed from empty rooms. Shadows moved without light. And when Dr. Carter looked at his reflection in the mirrored surface of a control panel, it wasn't his face staring back at him. It was something else. Something that had been waiting. Something that had finally woken up.